Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, rather, everybody. Welcome back to our community conference series. Every last Thursday of the month, my office has done community conference series to educate our community and our constituents around the issues that are so super important and impact us the most right here in the 31st Assembly District. Tonight's discussion is going to be around foundation aid and District 31 equity, making sure that our students who are returning to school post COVID-19 and during or after the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, understand what their rights are as it relates to foundation aid, understand the resources that are available to them, but most importantly, understand what it's going to take on both the activist side, on the parent side, on the student side, to make sure that we have adequate access to education and resources for our students and our school in our community. So I'm so thankful to be joining so many of our amazing partners tonight for our community conference series. I'm going to slow down for a second and allow our online audiences to join. We are streaming live on Facebook at Assemblymember Khalil Anderson on the Facebook page. We're also on our YouTube channel at Khalil Anderson, as well as Twitter at Khalil Anderson. So I'm just going to wait for some of our audiences to jump on so that they know we are here live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube to get this very important information from our amazing guest speakers that we are going to be hearing from tonight. For folks who are just tuning in, this is our monthly community conference series. Tonight's discussion is going to be on foundation aid and District 31 equity. We're looking forward to hearing questions, concerns from parents, from students, from activists and advocates alike. So we're really looking forward to seeing our amazing guests share important updates and information tonight. I see our viewers on Facebook are logging in. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Thanks for watching. Checking in on our YouTube audience. So glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of tonight's live. And I see our Twitter audience beginning to grow. Thank you so much for being on and watching live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we're going to get started. I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to be here again tonight. We took a summer hiatus, but we're back here every last Thursday of the month. We're going to be talking about very important issues. This month, we're talking about foundation aid and making sure that we have equity for our Assembly District right here in the Rockaways, Rosedale, Brookfield, Springfield Gardens, South Ozone Park. Blessed to represent it. Before I start welcoming up our guests, I want to just give a few brief announcements and greet you all. Of course, thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in every last Thursday of the month for our community conference series. Tomorrow, I'm so excited. Tomorrow begins National Expungement Week, October 1st. We'll be hosting an Expungement Week and Information Workshop. Learn about the opportunities to have your record expunged if you're eligible for low-level offenses that concern folks who, were marijuana, folks who might have had marijuana possession or things of that nature. So we're looking forward to hearing from our amazing sponsors and co-sponsors of that event, Queens Offenders, Canaware Society, all the amazing partners that help make sure that tomorrow's event is going to be a success. It is October 1st tomorrow, first day of October. We're having two sessions, one at 12 p.m. and one at 6 p.m. So we are so excited for this opportunity to partner with these amazing folks to talk about what folks' rights are and knowing their rights and ability to be able to advocate as they're working to get their records expunged so that they can have the opportunity to get employment, apply for school aid, and things of that nature. So super important. Another very important update for the community, our office hours have changed. As I mentioned before, before we went on our hiatus, We were in our summer hours. We're no longer in the summer. So folks who missed the summer, we ain't in the summer no more. But our normal hours are 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. by appointment. We want to make sure folks are scheduling appointments. If we do get walk-ins, we want to take your information, schedule an appointment with you. All folks who visit the office are subject to COVID-19 protocol, very important. So Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're here. Both of my office, 1931 Mott Avenue, the Suite 301, and 13117 Rockaway Boulevard. Looking forward to making sure that folks who have questions around our programming or general constituent concerns are able to access and reach our office right here in the 31st Assembly District. Want to welcome our Facebook audiences, our YouTube audiences, as well as our audiences on Twitter. Thank you so much for being on tonight. So important that people understand their rights as it relates to foundation aid, what's happening in our schools as our kids are returning. So I'm going to greet and welcome up our panelists. Our panelists for tonight, I'm going to welcome them on and add them to the stream so that they could introduce themselves briefly, and then we will get into the program for tonight. So our first panelist is David Normand. He's the Deputy Superintendent for Community School District 27 in the New York City Department of Education. I'm going to add him here into the stream. Mr. Normand, Superintendent, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me and inviting me to this wonderful event. I'm here, on behalf of Superintendent Carry On, the Superintendent in District 27. I will do my best to answer, all the questions relating to the topic that I can, and I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. Thankful to have you on tonight's call to answer critical, important questions that folks are having, in regards to our kids returning to school. And just to name some of the objectives for our audience tonight, we're going to have advocates speak about tonight New York City's progress since the implementation of Foundation Aid. For folks who don't know, Foundation Aid stems from a lawsuit that was launched in the early to mid 2000s in regards to making sure that schools, school districts, community districts that predominantly of color that have historically not been receiving equitable funding for their schools. We, in the legislature last cycle in the budget process, made sure that we included funding to make sure that those numbers, as it relates to what each school district was owed, is paid back over a 3-year period. So I'm excited about that work, with 60% coming this year and 20% the subsequent years thereafter until the formula is reaching level so that every school district in the state of New York can be receiving equitable funding. So thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent Normand, for being on the call. We also have, for our first segment, we also have Marina O'Malley. Miss Marina O'Malley is New York City Department of Education and Deputy Staffer for New York City Department of Education District 75. So for our parents who are in District 75, this is very, very important for you to be on tonight's call to hear concerns and get questions answered. So I'm going to add you to the stream, Miss O'Malley.
Hi. Actually, I'm.
No, read that wrong. You got me. You're in the next segment. My apologies. Let me put you back, and we'll circle back with you later. Okay. Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. We'll start with you, and then we'll circle through our amazing panelists. But I want to just set the tone of what we're talking about today and review some of the objectives. So we want to review Foundation Aid. We want to talk about the fight for equal state funding, which AQE is going to talk about, and discuss the implementation of resources for parents and teachers with our friends and partners at Dial a Teacher. So we're so grateful for them to be on tonight. So our schools are returning. Our kids are returning. I had the pleasure of being out on the first day of school to greet our students. I went to 2 schools in my district and had the opportunity to visit with students, talk to students, hear their questions, hear their concerns, but also talk to parents. And just it was a family reunion the first day coming back to school, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to have our parents, to have our teachers, to have our staff back in the building. Obviously, with safety protocol and making sure that COVID-19 was at the forefront of the work that we do in making sure our kids are able to reintegrate into the school building. I was able to also visit PSMS 52 as well as PSMS 43 in the Rockaways. I was joined by my colleagues in government where we delivered some resources that we had amassed through fundraising over the summer to make sure that our kids had a great time. So we presented them a $500 check, and I was so glad to be a part of helping with that fundraising. Want to make sure we've got all of our folks here for the Department of Education. So we have you, Deputy Superintendent. You're also representing D75? Okay. I think that's Wendy.
No. Yeah. So the schools, we have 50 schools that we represent within District 27. We have some pre-K, 3K sites that we also represent. We have 1 high school under our purview that we have, but the the high schools are represented by another superintendent, and District 75 is also represented by another superintendent. So we really can't speak on anything relating to District 75. We would, refer to those superintendents and deputy superintendents.
Without a doubt. I thank you so much for sharing that. So I know that in Assembly District 31, there are several schools in District 27, both in the Rockaways and in South Ozone Park. A lot of parents have had concerns as it relates to busing and as it relates to COVID-19 protocol. I just want to make sure that parents know that they can visit the Board of Education's website, NYC DOE, to learn more about infections or positive cases that are found in the building. But can you share with us, Deputy Superintendent, excuse me, what the district is doing around busing and transportation for our students in District 27?
Thank you for the question. We are not an entity that works independent of the DOE. There's a lot of hands that are participating in making sure those services are provided to the families in our community. We work with the Office of Transportation. We also work with the borough office to ensure that that transportation issues are handled in the quickest way possible. What we would always suggest is that the first place that you look for support is the school and the school principal. They have a lot of impact in terms of and information that can probably be handled quicker than that would be handled at the district level. So it's important that all parents make sure that they reach out to their school so the school is aware of the issue, so they can escalate it. And we will also escalate any issues that we're having with the students and families within our district. I would also encourage everyone to visit the District 27 website, District 27 nyc.org, and if we have an area in there where you can ask questions, you can reach out to us so that we can follow up and support you in any information or resource that we can provide to our families in the community. So I would definitely say that is a first step. But we know that that bus transportation is lagging, in terms of making sure that all students are provided transportation that are mandated for that. But I would definitely reach out to your child's school so that they can be informed of the issue and it can escalate it and handle it in a timely manner.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. I'm going to invite up Deputy Superintendent Shelly Kallenberg, who is representing Superintendent Kettler, who is the superintendent for District 75. And I'll ask the same question around busing. So for our audiences who are watching, we're dealing with issues around School District 27 as well as District 75, who are special needs, and District 75 students who have special needs and IEPs. So I'm going to invite you up, Shelly, briefly to introduce yourself to answer that question around busing and transportation, and then I'm going to go into our questions around foundation aid.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me to be here on behalf of District 75. And as the Assembly member had said, I am representing Superintendent Kettler-Louisant, as well as my co-deputy, Dr. Adam Breyer, on this panel. And we within District 75 do serve students citywide. So we support students across all 5 boroughs and across geographic and school districts throughout the city. So we are very widespread, and transportation, of course, is paramount to making sure that we're getting our students to and from school every day. So I share my colleagues' recognition of how important it is to maintain those very close relationships with the Office of Pupil Transportation and to be in ongoing communication with OPT to make sure that our students are getting the transportation needs that are necessary to be able to get them to school every day. We do work very closely with our liaisons for the Office of Pupil Transportation through the Department of Education, as well as have direct lines of communication with OPT itself. We are in very close contact with our schools to look at how transportation is looking across our schools. And we do make sure that we are in ongoing communication for any needs that arise, so we can make sure that any questions or escalations are handled immediately and make sure that we flag to the appropriate parties any items that need to be addressed, so we can make sure that our students have what they need to be able to be in the classrooms every day as we welcome them back into our school system this year.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg. I'm thankful for you just sharing that, because I know a lot of parents have that question around travel, transportation, and it creates a great sense of anxiety for our parents. So we want to make sure that they're on track and know their rights in respect to that. So I'm going to go into the discussion around foundation aid. And I just wanted to get the busing and transportation question out the way, because we did receive a couple of calls and inquiries to the office or on social media around it. So thank you guys both for answering those questions. And we'll certainly follow up with both District 27 and District 75 around any OPT related issues that arise out of our office. So thank you so much. So as our city schools transition to in-person learning, I guess what are some of the highest priorities and concerns for school communities amid COVID-19, and how will it impact sort of how foundation aid is dispersed? And just really quickly for our viewers who are just now tuning in, this is our monthly community conference series every last Thursday of the month. We're here 7 p.m. talking about issues that are key, critical, and important to the 31st Assembly District. This month, we're talking about foundation aid. We're joined by representatives from the New York City Department of Education, both from District 27 that services the Rockaways as well as South Ozone Park in the 31st Assembly District, as well as Deputy Superintendent Norman from District 27 and Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg from District 75. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I just see our audience is growing, so I'm glad that folks are seeing the information and this is getting to them. So my question that I ask is, as our kids are transitioning back in, as our communities, school communities are concerned with COVID, how will foundation aid funding support, or what can it be to do to be supportive in addressing some of the COVID-19 concerns that folks are having in this community? So we'll start with Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg, and then we'll swing on over to you, Deputy Superintendent Norman.
Okay, sure. So funding is always looked at very closely in terms of the resources that our schools need to be successful. Within District 75, we actually follow an instructional model of funding that is based on the ratios of our students, that's funded based on class size and instructional program. And so within our programs, we are always looking very closely at the individualized, targeted instructional needs driven by students' IEPs and the resources, curriculum, and supports that students are going to need to be successful. So, of course, a big piece of the funding that schools receive, District 75 included, is in order to support the exceptional teachers and support staff providers that we have within our schools. So we're always looking very closely at the expertise of those individuals that are instructing our students. We have a wide range of support staff within our schools, paraprofessionals, and related service providers as well, who provide the services that our students need. When we, coming back into the schools this year, after the time that students were learning in so many different modalities over these past 18 months, we have continued to prioritize targeted curriculum supports. We're looking at foundational literacy, skill building, and the tools and curricula and targeted interventions that each student needs to be able to continue to develop their literacy skills. And we're doing the same with math, looking at where students are, where their skills were able to build during the pandemic, what we need to continue to support, and the related interventions that are necessary to be able to help that process. We also learned a tremendous amount about digital literacy and how much we're able to gain through the vast range of technology tools that are available to support instruction and to provide so many innovative ways to help students learn. So we've invested across the district and across a lot of our schools a continued support for funding of those technology tools that were so beneficial to our students in their learning over the course of the pandemic. And we've also continued to recognize how deeply rooted addressing the social emotional learning needs of students continues to be. So there are a variety of curricula, a variety of tools, a variety of supports that schools are investing in to make sure that we are each and every day throughout the day targeting and addressing the social emotional learning needs of our students.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg. And Deputy Superintendent Norman, same question, just trying to get a sense of how the resources are being used to address some of these priorities, as we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, thank you. It's a great question. And I thank my fellow Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg for giving us a really, a thorough breakdown of how those resources are being used. I think that, we all are working in order to support the larger city. So there are instructional principles that the chancellor has put forth It revolves around ensuring high expectations and rigorous instruction, developing and strengthening a welcoming and affirming school environment, implementing inclusive curriculum and assessments that center on student voice and collaboration, and center time for ongoing and targeted professional learning communities. Based on these instructional principles, districts kind of create their own goals and foci in order to address those areas that the larger city is putting forth. So within District 27, we're designing those rigorous, coherent instruction embedded within a social, emotional, and academic learning, as well as culturally responsive, sustaining education. So now that at the district level, that those are the foci, the resources are connected to supporting that vision. And I think that one of the things that's important to note, that any conversation around budget or funding is really at the school level. So districts don't control budgets, right? That has happened at the local school level. And the voice embedded within that, that funding is done within those SLTs, those school leadership teams. Part of the process of any principal is you have various constituents. You have parent representatives. You may have community representatives. You may have student representatives, administration, and teachers. You should have D37 representatives. So all these different constituents come together during these SLT meetings, and they have discussions about the school's budget. And the administration is supposed to ensure that the clarity around how the school is going to spend the funds in order to support academic growth and support the larger community, that's done at that local school level. So it's important to note that, parents have voice in identifying what's needed for their own community, their own school community. And I think it's very important that parents and community members understand that how a school spends their money is decided during those SLT meetings. And that's where you can find information about how the school is funding different initiatives and how they're going to use that to improve student learning, to support social emotional learning, to support culturally responsive education, how technology is going to be used and purchased in order to support learning. So all these things are done really at the local school level. And I think it's important that our parents know that that's where voice takes place, those PTA meetings that allow for parents to express what do they need in the school, in the community, so that the various constituents can work collaboratively in order to get that accomplished.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendents, for just letting our parents, our audiences who are watching online know, what these funds are being spent on. When we pass them in the budget, and speaking specifically about foundation aid, we want to make sure they're reaching our schools so that our schools are getting the adequate amount of resources so that we're producing the best possible global, well-rounded, and best educated student. And in the case of our District 75 students, I am a former District 75 student here in our public schools. So I understand the need for our students who have IEPs, 504 plans, et cetera, need that intensive learning space, skills, and investment also around the issues of social emotional awareness that impact the student's ability to learn. So I thank you both, Deputy Superintendents, for answering that question. The second question, you guys have answered it in your first one, but I want to just present it to the audience, is that, how has foundation aid fully impacted financial resources that are available within the schools? And you guys answered that it's a local level mechanism. But I'm going to invite you guys back on when we come to do the questions and answers, because I am seeing some questions from parents on our Facebook as well as on our Twitter. Facebook and YouTube. I get all the social medias mixed up. But we're going to circle back during question and answer. around making sure that we're addressing social emotional awareness, looking at making sure that healthcare is in our schools via COVID testing and possible vaccinations. So whatever is taking place in both District 75 and District 27 schools here in both South Ozone and the Rockaway Peninsula, we want to answer those for our parents. So thank you guys so much. We're going to bring you back in for questions and answers. Thanks for joining. We'll be right back. Okay, for the next segment of tonight's community conference, we're going to be inviting up the amazing, super focused, engaged, and energized Alliance for Quality Education. We were so thankful to have them here on the call tonight. We have Marina O'Malley, who's the Policy and Operations Director. We're so excited because AQE was at the forefront of fighting to make sure that foundation aid came to our schools, to our communities, that have historically been left out of the conversation, left out of the discussion, to making sure that we have an equitable funding model and an equitable funding stream for our schools and our communities. So without further ado, let me welcome up Marina O'Malley to our stream tonight. Marina.
Hi.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a very exciting time to talk about foundation aid. It's supposed to start flowing to our schools now, so it's great to be here.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being here. Can you introduce yourself to our audiences? Tell us a little bit about AQE.
Yes, of course. As Assembly Member said, I'm Marina Mark O'Malley. I'm up in Albany, in New York. I've been with AQE for 13 years, so it's been a while. And the Alliance for Quality Education, for those of you who might not be familiar with our organization, is a statewide organization that does that combines community organizing of parents and students and teachers with legislative advocacy. And we were actually born out of the need to give parents and community members a voice within the lawsuit, the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, that was brought against the state in 1993 by now Senator Robert Jackson, who sued New York State because it was systematically underfunding schools. So AQE was created as a coalition of a statewide coalition of groups to organize parents, to elevate their voice and give a legislative solution to that lawsuit. We've been in existence since 2000. The lawsuit has been now 30 years old, but it was finally settled in the mid-2000s. So it was a very long, hard-fought fight that took many people coming to the Capitol, calling legislators, calling the governor, and pushing for equitable and adequate funding for schools, particularly schools who educate high-need students who might be in poverty, students who are Black and brown, students who may have special needs or English language learners.
Which is so important. Yeah. And Marina, I believe you had like a visual you wanted to show the audience.
Yeah, I actually have a timeline of how the settlement of CFE happened. This does not show the entire history. 1993 is when the lawsuit was filed. It took 15 years for that lawsuit to go through all levels of court. And finally, in 2006 is when it was settled by the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals, that ruled that the state was in fact violating students' rights by not funding them their schools adequately. So the year after, in 2007, was when foundation aid was created. The then Governor Spitzer and the legislature decided that they would give they would commit $5.5 billion to schools across the state over the course of 4 years. Of course, I don't. 2 years of that happened, 2007 and 2008. After that, we had an economic downturn that took away all of the funding that the state provided. About $2 billion were given of that 5.5, and then it was all negated, all cut in 2010 and 11 by Governor Patterson and then Governor Cuomo, who proceeded after that and pretty much in his entire tenure to underfund schools systematically. And then after we pulled out of the economic downturn in 2012 is when little by little the state started giving a little bit of foundation aid every year to our schools. That though wasn't good enough because foundation aid was created, the foundation aid formula was created with the specific intention to have large sums of funding go to high need schools. Anything less than $1 billion wasn't cutting it, wasn't going to work for foundation aid because that didn't serve the purpose to bring up to fully fund schools that was systematically underfunded. So finally, as the assembly member said in the beginning of this community conversation, last year in the last enacted budget, last March, the state committed to fully funding foundation aid. There's about $4 billion left to pay off foundation aid. 1.1 billion of that goes to New York City schools. So over the course of this year and the next 2 years, by 2023, schools across the state and including New York City will have all of the foundation aid that they were owed. So we are now in year one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marina. I really appreciate you giving us that perspective and sharing that very important timeline that led us to where we are today as it relates to foundation aid. And I thank you so much for providing that brief history too. A lot of our viewers may or may not know, or just need a refresher. Now, I'm looking at the data from your website. It says that Assembly District 31 in particular is owed nearly $10 million, to be exact, it's $9.5 million. And I wanted to ask, what are the next steps in ensuring equitable school funding for all students, as we have won the foundation aid? It's in the budget next 3 years. My district is going to see $9.5 million, almost $10 million over the next 3 years. But what else could we be doing in terms of next steps to ensuring that we continue to make sure that equitable funding is achieved for all schools?
So what I would encourage everybody to do right now is to actually keep an eye on how the DOE is proposing to spend foundation aid and the federal dollars, because there's that pot of money as well. And to my understanding, there is a website that is devoted to a plan that includes foundation aid on the DOE's website, and that specifies how that funding is going to be spent. It might be at the district level, it might be at the DOE level, and not at the school level or the CEC or the school district level in New York City. But asking questions, attending meetings and CEC council meetings, and asking how are this funding, where is this funding going to go, is one of the best things that we can do. Over the summer, we did actually at the beginning of the summer, we had done a survey, AQ had done a survey asking parents how they wanted my funding to be spent, both the federal funds and foundation aid. And overwhelmingly, parents from New York City had said that they wanted to see money spent towards lower class size, more social and emotional supports for students, and making sure that even though we are still in the middle of a pandemic, that we are addressing the problems that pre-existed the pandemic, overcrowding, the lack of supports of social workers, school psychologists, all of those things that were there before not only continue to exist, but have become bigger during the pandemic. And asking those questions, assessing how this funding is being spent. There was a whole program over the summer that the DOE did, and now we need to figure out. We need to find out how was that funding, how was that program, the programs that were implemented over the summer help students. So asking questions like that is really crucial to determining how we're gonna how our students are going to do this year, but also the following year. And honestly, it's going to basically hold everybody accountable, ourselves included. We fought all these years for the funding. We wanted to make sure that it's being spent appropriately and effectively, so that our students are not don't suffer from that.
And Marina, what was the name of that program over the summer that DOE ran?
The summarizing.
Summarizing, right? Okay,
Yes.
And that came from federal. That wasn't foundation.
That my understanding is that is federal money.
Okay.
Foundation aid was spent in staff.
School year.
Is my
Right.
understanding. On other programs, I think there was some pre-K in there. So there is. There are a lot of good things that are being implemented, but monitoring how they're doing and how they're reaching the students that need it the most is what we owe to our students, to our children to do. And so that there is transparency, and so that we know and keep up to date with what how to better serve the students that need it the most. That's the other thing that we are concerned. We've never seen this kind of funding before, right? Our state has seen $13 billion foundation aid and federal money included. So how are we going to make sure that this money is spent well is really what should be in the back of our head, and hold people accountable about that.
Thank you so much, Marina, for joining us tonight and answering those really, really important questions around foundation aid and what they mean to our district, what this means to our community. I'm going to invite you back on the stream when we have question and answers. So thank you so much for sharing. And we're looking forward to continuing to partner around making sure that not just this pot of money with foundation aid is spent correctly, but the federal funds and the subsequent funds thereafter that we're going to see in our schools, in our communities, go to making sure that our kids have an equitable access to education, that we're equitably addressing socioeconomic not norms, or disnorms rather, whatever the word is, in addressing these very, very important issues here in our communities. So I'm going to invite up Miss Wendy Walker. Miss Wendy Walker is going to be addressing tonight some questions in regards to the UFT, or Dial a Teacher initiative that was started by the United Federation of Teachers, DOE, and the New York State Department of Education. We're going to invite you up, Wendy, to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what the amazing work that you do at Dial a Teacher, and share with us how DAT initiative has been helpful in bridging the gap for our students. So welcome, Ms. Wendy Walker Wilson, who is the field coordinator at Dial a Teacher. Welcome aboard tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. Yes, Dial a Teacher has been around for over 30 years, trying bridging the gap in education. We are a free service that provide homework and academic support to students and parents in 9 different languages: Armenian, Bengali, Chinese, English, Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, Russian, and Tagalog. And we do it in all the core subjects. There was a myth that it was only for elementary school, but it's for all students between kindergarten and 12th grade. We have physics, chemistry, biology, history, literature for the high school grade teachers, and we have teachers for elementary and middle school. We provide this service Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we provide the service to general ed, English as second language learners, and special needs students. They could be from public, private, parochial, or charter schools. It doesn't matter. They could call us as many times as they want in the evening. The teachers here are New York State certified. They teach during the day in their classrooms, and then they come here at night in the evening and provide this service, and it's free. I also provide parent workshops at schools so that parents can assist their children with their academic needs also. So that's how we are trying to bridge the gap, because most people can't afford a private tutor or they need assistance. So this is a free service for them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walker Wilson. Really appreciate the work that y'all are doing at Dial a Teacher. Now, and just in keeping with the theme tonight of foundation aid, I guess what work has DAT been doing in regards to making sure that we bridge the gap, the educational gap, the academic enrichment gap that exists, and as we're looking at it in the lens of Campaign for Fiscal Equity, the additional funding that's been made available, how has your organization been able to take advantage or? Mm-hmm.
So the funding, so we are a collaboration, as you said before, between the three entities, and the funding allows us to bridge that socio-economic gap that's there. And most of the children that we service are from socioeconomic communities. So we provide that academic help, because in school, when the teacher she's teaching in a class of sometimes 20 or 25 students. When the student call our helpline, they're teaching them one-on-one with a licensed teacher. So what they didn't get in the daytime or didn't understand or wasn't clear on when the instruction was given, now they're getting this one-on-one support, which is better because we ensure that the children understand, and then we call back to check to make sure that they were able to complete the tasks that they had for homework, or they complete whatever task it was that the teacher gave to them, and we work for them to have mastery. So when they go back to school the next day or the day after, they feel successful. And when a child feels successful, it makes them more eager to learn more.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walker Wilson. And my next question, in piggybacking off of that, I guess what recommendations would you have for parents and caregivers looking to find additional resources like yours for their students to support their academic success and their social and emotional health at this particular time?
Okay, so we provide the service Monday through Thursday from 4 to 7, but they can also, public libraries are doing after school and also on Saturday mornings. They provide additional helps and services. They can go to museums. They can also go to the parks. There are community-based organizations that are offering yoga and like meditation. Parks and recreational in the community are also offering physical and emotional programs after school and in parks. And there is Shape Up New York City. But when I give workshop to parents, I always tell them at the end of the school day that their children need decompression time. Like with us as adults, sometimes we have a very busy day, and when you go and sit in your car before you turn it on to drive home, you sit for 2 or 3 minutes and gather your thoughts, and then you go and proceed to go home. That same way, children need just a time to themselves to decompress from everything that they learned during the day, and to just have that 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes free time so that they can collect themselves.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walker Wilson. Really appreciate you just sharing some of those tips and very important recommendations for our parents, for our teachers, for our students, and how they can tap into local resources and access resources for their communities. As we're working to address the enrichment gap, we thank DAT for the work that they do in helping provide tutoring, mentorship, programming for free for our students Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So as promised, I'm going to invite everybody back onto the stream to answer questions and concerns from our audiences who are watching on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We're so thankful for having this panel discussion tonight. As I stated before, the focus of tonight was and is foundation aid, and we're so grateful that each and every one of you are on the call tonight to answer questions in that spirit. As our kids are returning back to school, we want to make sure that they have the best possible tools necessary to be the most successful and to be a part of the growth process as folks are returning to school. So just for audiences, or for the folks who are in the audience who are just now tuning in, my name is Khalil Anderson, and I'm your New York State Assembly member. We are getting ready to close out our monthly community conference here, where we discussed foundation aid and making sure that there's equity in the 31st Assembly District as it relates to school resources in our community. Every Thursday we're here, and this week we're talking about this very important subject matter. We have with us tonight briefly, as we're getting ready to close out, I want to just reintroduce everyone. We have Deputy Superintendent David Normand of District 27. We have Deputy Superintendent Kallen, who's the Deputy Superintendent for District 75. We have Marina O'Malley, who's the Policy and Operations Director for the Alliance of Quality Education. And we have Ms. Wendy Walker Wilson, Field Coordinator for Dial a Teacher. So I want to thank them all for joining us here tonight. We're going to jump right into questions and answers because I know that some of you all have to jump off. Some of you all on the panel have to jump off. But a question that has repeatedly been asked on our social media pages tonight is class size. We have a question here from Ms. Aracelia Cook, who's a constituent in South Ozone Park. She states here on the screen, 25 to 30 is just too many students in a class. We have been fighting to reduce class sizes for years, and the only thing we've had received are increased class sizes. So, and as a former Department of Education employee, I know exactly what she means when she says this. From the DOE, who can answer the question on how the CFE funds and the federal funds have been made available to reduce class sizes? So let me take you, Deputy Superintendent, because I know you have to jump. Mr. Norman, let me take you, and then we'll kick it over to Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg to talk about D75 and then AQE.
Yes, thank you. And I do apologize for having to leave at 8. I do have another commitment, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about class size. I know that it's something that a lot of our parents and a lot of our community members is a major issue. And I think that one of the key things in class size is making sure that funds are available. Now, C4E funds were created to help reduce class size. I think that at each school by school level, they have various needs, right? So some schools it's harder to staff teachers. That's a reality. Some schools have a difficult time staffing teachers. Some schools historically did not have the resources in order to staff to reduce those class sizes. So hopefully, with the funding, the additional funding from the foundation aid, that we can more equitably provide funding for schools so that they can have enough teachers in order to reduce those class sizes. We all know in terms of as educators and as parents, when you have too many students in the classroom, it can be very difficult to teach and for students to learn. I think that I don't want to I know that there's been some phenomenal educators who've had 32 kids per class and has done a phenomenal job with educating kids. But ideally, we would definitely like to reduce class sizes. Hopefully, with this funding, supporting our principals, supporting our teachers. One of the things that we're doing and we've done, throughout the last few years is really working with different principals and finding ways to utilize and be creative with their budgets so that they can reduce those class sizes. I know that there's been conversations with principals on how to look at where to focus the funds so that class size can be a focal point in those schools. But it's something that is a focal point of the district of schools, because every principal will tell you that if they would want to reduce class size in order to ensure learning is taking place. So it's something that hopefully these funds, the foundation aid funds, will be used to support that effort.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. And we're definitely going to circle back with you because I know there's a few questions our audience has had around social work, around class size, and around transparency and how those budget monies are spent. I know you mentioned that CECs and SLTs would be maybe the most important function in decision making and making sure that structure, those funds get there. But I definitely want to bring you back on one of our later programming to make sure we're answering that question. So I thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. I thank all my fellow panelists. I also would say school budgets are also on the New York City DOE website. So if you go to find a school, you can see the budgets and where monies are being spent on teachers and everywhere. So there are some resources available on the New York City DOE website that will provide you information on each school's budget and how they're funding various teachers and staff within the building. So I would encourage everyone to go to the New York City DOE website for more information on budgets. But I agree that there needs to be transparency. I think part of the transparency lies at that school level during those parent PTA meetings, during those SLT meetings, where the majority of the time for those meetings should be spent on identifying the instructional focus of the building and identifying how we're going to pay for it, how we're going to fund these initiatives. So the budget and the instruction are two things that work hand in hand, and that should be something that all parents should be exposed to so that they understand what's going on in their schools. But thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. Looking forward to working with you as well.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg, I've been butchering your name all night. My apologies. But I'm so thankful that you're here representing District 75, my home. Can you talk a little bit about what we're doing in regards to class size? It looks like we just got a comment for you, Wendy, on our live stream on Facebook. Dial-A Teacher is an excellent resource. So we're going to talk about that next. But let's hear from you, Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg.
Thank you so much. So within District 75, class size is managed a little bit differently because within our specialized classes, our ratios designate how many students can be in a classroom. So students in specialized classes within District 75 are identified to be in the classroom with the ratio that is going to be instructionally appropriate for them. So as they go through the individualized education process, that is the key determinant in terms of the instructional program that students are going to be a part of. So by being ratio driven, it means that if it is, for example, a 6-to-1-to-1 class, that means there will not be more than 6 students within that classroom with the teacher or paraprofessional.
Right, it's based on the IEPs. It's based on the class size for the IEPs. And I guess that would be the same for our students who are in inclusion programs or mainstream. I don't know the correct term now, but can you share what that looks like for our students who are in inclusion?
Absolutely, and that was the next piece that I did want to refer to. Whereas we have the ratio-driven classes in our specialized programs, we do also, as you noted, have students that are participating in inclusive education programs where they are in classes alongside their district peers and engaging in the same programming. So that being said, we are very much a part of the conversation with building councils, et cetera, and in collaboration with our respective SLTs and the building bodies that are discussing what decisions are being made regarding class configurations, et cetera. So from that perspective, when we have students that are engaging in these inclusive education programs, it's very important to us to know that the size of the class is going to be appropriate to their needs. So we do work in collaboration with those building councils, with the administration, and the decision making bodies within all of the schools that are a part of those programs to look out for the needs and the best interests of all of the students that are involved.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent, for that. And for Marina and Wendy, in terms of resources for our students, resources and making sure that our kids could help bridge the academic achievement gap that exists predominantly in Black and brown schools. One of our viewers on YouTube asked, what are some of those resources that are available right now during the school year that you can share with parents or share with educators or share with folks in the community in regards to that?
I'll let Wendy go first. I'm not, so I can understand the question. Resources for students in particular, or for schools to actually?
I think the constituent was trying to get at like what resources or how can they reach out to you or your organizations to help with the academic achievement gap in the region. I'm just reading it word for word.
Well, I sent flyers to your office that you can share on your platform virtually and tangible.
Which we absolutely will, which we're excited about.
They can call our number. I'll give it to them now, 212-777-3380. And that's the number that anyone can call, and they'll speak to a live teacher Monday through Thursday between 4 and 7. As I stated before, the New York
and I'm sorry, Ms. Walker-Wilson, can you name some of the subjects students get help in as well?
All core subjects: literature,
Excellent.
biology, chemistry, physics,
US
social
history.
studies, math, English. English is a second language, Spanish. We have all the curriculum for New York City, although we get calls from other children in other states. And also we get calls from Yonkers, Long Island, upstate New York, Buffalo. Because of the pandemic and children were virtual, they were just reaching out for a resource to help. We worked throughout the pandemic.
We commend you guys. We absolutely commend you for that. And what she's saying, folks, is make sure you, New York City students and parents, use this very important resource. We've got to make sure that folks get connected. The dial teacher is so important. I think this question is for you, Marina. In terms of making sure that foundation aid, $9.5 million, that's expected to be allocated to the 31st Assembly District just alone, how do we make sure that that is actually accountable to the parents and what the needs and issues are in the school communities on the district level? I know DOE mentioned, making sure that we're involved in our SLTs and the decision-making power on the internal process, but for the folks who are not involved in those spaces, how can they get that information and resources?
I think that one of the primary ways that people can be involved and ask those questions is, quite frankly, what you're doing right now, Assemblymember, bringing issues that they hear about from their students or in their schools in their community to their representatives, who can then ask questions of the officials and ask questions of principals and superintendents, and making sure that organizations like ours, that are advocacy organizations, also know about the different issues that exist in different schools. It is absolutely crucial for people to know what is going on in their students' school and ask about those questions. Ask, why is there somebody, one of your constituents asked, why is there 25 people, 25 students in a classroom? And who better to answer that question than the principal or superintendent? And honestly, raising those questions, and bringing it to the light of bringing it to everyone and making it public in forums like this and in community forums, is really, really important. I want to make sure that, about specifically around the class size issue, that you gotta that everybody who's listening to us knows and understands that there are two issues in New York City, right? There's the teacher to student ratio and the actual physical space issue. We need both. We need both a smaller a ratio, but we also need more space, more schools that need to be built, or need to be turned into buildings, so that we have more space for our students. I wanted to make sure that was actually something that people were thinking about it. And now, in the middle of the pandemic, there's also a need for a remote option, not a requirement, but an option for those who need it, for medical reasons and for other reasons, so that we don't have the overcrowding.
Thank you so much, Marina. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, for our monthly community conference series, where we discussed foundation aid, where we had conversations about how to resource our communities, making sure that we address the achievement gap. We had so many questions from our live audiences on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And we're so thankful for the opportunity for our constituents here in the 31st Assembly District to ask questions, to get their concerns heard, and have an opportunity to just share with folks and share resources with our community here tonight. So I thank each and every one of you for joining us here tonight, and our audience, and of course our amazing panelists for joining us here tonight. If you all, starting with Wendy and ending with Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg, can you just share your contact information or a way in which our constituents can reach out? Obviously, folks can always call our office, 718-327-1845 or 718-322-4958. If they have any constituent-specific questions, concerns, legislation, things that you think we should focus on to make sure that our schools, our students in our community are well resourced. So Wendy, why don't you share that number and contact information, followed by Marina and Deputy Superintendent.
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on your panel tonight and to share this great resource. You can reach us at 212-777-3380, Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. If you have any specific questions or any parent group would like a parent workshop, you can email me at wwilson@uft.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina.
Thank you for this opportunity, Assemblymember. All of our email addresses and phone numbers, because now we're all still working remotely, can be found at www.aqeny.org under staff. Our emails, my email is my first name, marina@aqeny.org. And all of the people on my organization follow that same formula. For any questions or concerns that you want to share with us, so we can share with other parents and see how widespread an issue is, but also to learn. We do a lot of workshops and a lot of programs to actually develop skills for a number of different issues and advocacy. So we will be more than happy to do presentations or workshops for anyone who needs it.
We got resources, we got advocates. Thank you so much, Marina. And thank you so much, Wendy. And close us out, Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you so very much. And truly what a pleasure it was to serve with my fellow panelists and to be here with all of you. Advocacy on behalf of one's community is so very important. And these forums are such a rich opportunity to gain information, perspective, and for us from the panel to know what is on your mind so we can continue to do the work that we do to better our system and continue the supports that we provide. District 75 can be reached if you have a general question. We can filter it in whatever direction would best suit your needs. If you email d75info@schools.nyc.gov. And my name again is Shelly Kallenberg. My email is rklai, N as in Nancy, B as in boy, @schools.nyc.gov. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent Kallenberg, to Marina O'Malley from AQE. Thank you so much, Wendy Walker-Wilson. Thank you so much for being on the call tonight. Thank you all for watching our monthly community conference series right here on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, where we talk about subject matter that's key, critical, and important to our communities. Thank you so much, and looking forward to continue partnering. And if parents, if community have questions or concerns, you could also reach out to my office at 718-327-1845 or 718-322-4958, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. My office is open. And of course, on Fridays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We want to make sure we're bringing the resources to you. And these amazing panelists provided those very important information and tips for our community. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Looking absolutely forward to making sure that our community is fully resourced and we are out doing the work for our community. Thank you so much, everyone.